Kevin set the crate of strawberries down onto the stall with a dull, wooden thud, the sweet, sun-warmed scent instantly mingling with the heavier aromas of baked bread and fresh herbs drifting through the farmer's market. He reached for the next box when a voice cut through the low hum of chatter and clinking jars. "How much per pound?" Kevin glanced up. The man standing before him didn't fit the usual market crowd. Crisp white shirt, cuffs neatly buttoned, dark sunglasses even in the shade of the awning. Kevin named his usual price without thinking. The man nodded once, reached into his jacket, and handed over bills worth 3 times the amount. No pause, no question, no request for change. Just a curt, almost businesslike gesture before he grasped 2 crates and walked away with the calm precision of someone who already knew exactly what he wanted. Kevin watched him thread through the maze of stalls, moving fast but never rushing, clutching the crates as though they contained something far more valuable than fruit. Around him, the market went on, vendors calling out specials, children tugging at their parents, but Kevin's attention stayed locked on that crisp shirt until it vanished into the blur of the crowd. The bills in his hand felt heavier than cash should. He counted again. Triple. Not a mistake, every note was clean and crisp. A tip? No, people tipped for good service, not before they even tasted a berry. And even if it was generosity, why pick him out of dozens of farmers selling fruit that morning? That night, long after the house had gone quiet, Kevin lay staring at the ceiling. He replayed the scene in fragments, the man's steady gaze, the faint trace of expensive cologne as he leaned over the table, the deliberate way he gripped the crate by the handles instead of the sides, like someone used to carrying delicate cargo. Each detail felt intentional, and none of it explained why. 2 days later, delivering a small order to a cafe across town, Kevin saw him again. The same man, same calm demeanor, standing outside a sleek restaurant whose name was written in gold letters tall enough to read from halfway down the block. Kevin slowed his truck just in time to see the man shake hands with a chef in a spotless white jacket. Between them sat a single wooden box, his wooden box, being carried through the back door by a waiter like it was the most important delivery of the day. Kevin stayed in his truck, hands gripping the wheel, heartbeat hammering in his ears. Why his strawberries? Why pay triple the price? And what did this gleaming, high-end place have to do with it? He didn't follow them inside. Not yet. Instead, he drove away with more questions than answers and a growing certainty that whatever was happening, it wasn't random. He couldn't know then that this single, unexplained sale would become the spark for a chain of choices, and risks, that would pull him out of the safety of routine farming into a world of contracts, deadlines, and ambitions big enough to either ruin him or make him a fortune. Kevin couldn't shake the image, that crate sliding through the restaurant's door, the chef's approving nod, the stranger's unreadable face. For 2 days, every berry he picked felt like it was part of a puzzle he didn't have the picture for. The next Saturday, he loaded the truck for the market, scanning the crowd before he even parked. The man wasn't there. Kevin tried to push it out of his mind, but every transaction felt dull in comparison, small bills, haggling customers, polite smiles. He caught himself staring at the road beyond the stalls, waiting for a white shirt to appear. It never did. Late that afternoon, as Kevin stacked empty crates, a folded note slipped from under one of them. His name was written in neat block letters. Inside, an address in the city and a time, Monday, 11 a.m. No signature. He thought about ignoring it. Markets were full of odd interactions, and he wasn't in the business of chasing strangers. But Monday morning found him driving into the city, dirt still under his nails, wondering if he'd regret it. The address led him to an alley beside the restaurant. No sign, no windows, just a steel service door. He hesitated, then knocked. The door opened an inch, enough for the same man to look him over. "You came," the man said. No handshake. No smile. "Bring your truck around back." Kevin obeyed, the tires crunching over the gravel until he was parked by a loading bay. The man inspected the crates in silence, lifting one, sniffing, setting it down. "We'll take them all. Same rate." Kevin swallowed. "Why?" The man's eyes stayed on the berries. "That's not how this works. You supply. We buy. You ask too many questions, and you don't get a call next week." It was a warning, and it worked. Kevin drove home with an envelope of cash and a head full of sharper questions. What was happening inside that restaurant? Why would they hide a supplier? And why him? That night, he told no one, not even his father. He stored the cash in a coffee tin under his bed and wrote the date on a scrap of paper. If it happened again, he'd start looking for answers. A week later, another note appeared. Same handwriting. Different time. This time, Kevin noticed something. His best fruit, the crates from the South Ridge, were always the ones they wanted. Someone inside that restaurant could tell the difference. And Kevin needed to know how, and why. The second delivery was faster, almost too smooth. Kevin pulled into the alley, the steel door opened without a knock, and two men in black aprons took the crates inside without a word. The envelope appeared in his hand as if by reflex, same weight, same clean bills. This time, Kevin lingered. He pretended to check a strap on his truck, watching through the narrowing gap in the door. He caught a glimpse of a narrow corridor, bright light spilling from somewhere deeper in, and the sound of voices, calm, deliberate, like a meeting, not a kitchen rush. Then the door clicked shut. On the drive home, Kevin started tracing a pattern. The notes always arrived after market day, always hidden where only he'd find them. The pickup times avoided the lunch rush. And most telling, only the Ridge berries made the cut. Someone inside was making a choice, and it wasn't random. By the third week, curiosity outweighed caution. He picked only from the Ridge, even leaving behind good fruit from the flats. He measured the sugar levels, checked the firmness, packed them into brand new boxes he bought with part of the first payment. If they wanted premium, he'd give them premium, but he'd also keep a sample for himself. At the restaurant's alley, the man in the white shirt, always the same one, took the crates, but this time his eyes flicked to the extra box Kevin had left in the truck bed. "What's that?" "Same berries. Different rows," Kevin said. "They're not the same," the man replied flatly. "Don't bring them again." It was a dismissal, but also a tell. Someone inside had tasted both and drawn a line Kevin hadn't even seen. That night, he cut one berry from the Ridge and one from the flats. Side by side, they looked identical. Same red, same size. But the Ridge berry was sweeter, just enough to notice if you were looking for it. Or if your business depended on it. The next week, the note didn't come. For the first time, Kevin wondered if he'd pushed too far. By Friday night, he'd almost given up when he found it, tucked under his truck's windshield wiper, bold letters, no greeting. Different location. Saturday. Don't be late. No restaurant address this time. Just a warehouse district on the edge of town. Kevin read it twice, his pulse in his throat. If this was still about strawberries, why change the game? And if it wasn't, what had he gotten himself into? Saturday morning, Kevin drove past rows of shuttered factories until he spotted the address, an unmarked brick building with a single rolling door half open. No sign of the restaurant, no smell of food. Just cold air spilling out and the low hum of refrigeration units inside. He eased the truck up to the opening. A man he didn't recognize stepped forward, tall, leather jacket, clipboard in hand. Not the white shirt buyer. Without a word, the man motioned for Kevin to back into the bay. Inside, the space was spotless. Pallets lined the walls, each stacked with produce, berries, herbs, greens, but all in immaculate, uniform packaging. Workers in hairnets moved silently between them, scanning barcodes and logging notes on tablets. Kevin's crates were unloaded and rolled toward a stainless steel table. A woman in gloves picked up one berry, sliced it, and examined it under a small light. She made a mark on her tablet, didn't look up. Kevin tried to speak. "So, who exactly am I delivering to now?" Clipboard man didn't glance at him. "Same as before. Different route. You'll be paid." Paid he was, another envelope, thicker this time. No explanation. No receipt. On his way out, Kevin caught sight of a crate with his own handwriting on the side, last week's Ridge berries, sealed with a new label. The logo was unfamiliar, elegant gold lettering, nothing to do with the restaurant. Before he could read more, someone pushed the pallet deeper into the warehouse. Driving home, Kevin's mind wouldn't settle. Why move his deliveries here? Who else's produce was in that warehouse? And how many hands touched his berries before they reached the plate? That night, curiosity got the better of him. He searched the logo online. The name belonged to a distribution company that supplied luxury hotels, private events, and a handful of elite restaurants, none of which Kevin had ever set foot in. And yet, somehow, his berries were in their supply chain. The next week, the note came earlier, Sunday night. Different pickup time. Same tone. Bring Ridge only. No substitutions. Payment on arrival. Kevin folded the note slowly. If he kept following their rules, he might finally learn where all this led. But if he asked too much, too soon, they might disappear just as quickly as they'd appeared. By the fourth warehouse drop, Kevin knew the rhythm: pull in, unload, watch his berries vanish into the system, leave with cash. No names, no small talk. But that morning, something broke the pattern. As he backed the truck into the bay, the rolling door stuck halfway down, jerking on its tracks. The usual hum of refrigeration was drowned out by a short burst of voices from inside, sharp, urgent. Kevin caught two words before they were swallowed by the clatter of machinery. Hotel order. He wasn't supposed to hear it. Clipboard man appeared faster than usual, motioning him to cut the engine. Workers swarmed the crates, moving them to the stainless steel inspection table. Kevin leaned against the truck, pretending to check his phone, eyes on the woman in gloves. She sliced a berry, held it up, and nodded to another worker, who affixed a label, black with gold lettering. This time, Kevin caught the whole name, Verilux Fine Provisions. He'd seen it once, years ago, in a magazine article about a rooftop gala in New York. The piece had lingered on the catering, trays of impossibly perfect produce, flown in fresh for the event. He remembered thinking it was a different planet from the one he farmed on. Now, his berries wore that label. He wanted to ask how his fruit ended up here, but the room had that same unspoken rule as before: you did your part, you didn't talk. When Clipboard man handed him the envelope, Kevin decided to push, just a little. "These go to Verilux?" he asked, like it was an afterthought. Clipboard man's eyes flicked to him, unreadable. "You grow. We move. That's all you need to know." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. On the drive home, Kevin kept picturing the gold label. He'd been selling to the market for years, arguing over 50-cent discounts with customers who complained about bruises. Now, someone was paying triple without a second glance, because his berries were ending up in places where price didn't matter. That night, he called Mia, the soil scientist. "Hypothetically," he said, "if someone wanted the absolute best berries I could grow, every single week, could I scale it up?" "You could try," she said slowly. "But matching that Ridge's microclimate in bulk? That's like bottling lightning." "Why?" Kevin didn't answer. He didn't want to explain, not yet. The next morning, another note waited on his windshield. Same neat block letters, but with an addition he'd never seen before. "Bring no one. Tell no one." It wasn't just a rule, it was a warning. Kevin read the note twice, then a third time. "Tell no one." The word seemed to press against his chest. He'd followed every instruction so far, but each trip to the warehouse left him with more questions and no answers. If he kept playing along, he might never know. By Thursday, he'd made up his mind. He wasn't going to blow his cover, just bend the rules. On pickup day, he loaded the ridge berries as usual, but this time, he strapped one small crate into the passenger seat, marked with a fake farm logo he'd scribbled that morning. Inside, a tiny GPS tracker lay beneath the berries, its blinking light hidden under a layer of leaves. At the warehouse, clipboard man barely looked at him. The workers rolled the crates to the inspection table, but the decoy stayed in Kevin's truck bed, wedged between two real boxes. He acted like he'd forgotten it, signed for payment, and drove away, looping around the block until he could park with a view of the bay door. 20 minutes later, two men loaded the decoy crate into a black van with no markings. No Verilux logo, no restaurant name. Kevin started his engine and followed. The van wound through the city, avoiding main roads, before pulling into an underground parking garage beneath a glass hotel tower. Kevin's pulse kicked up. This had to be the hotel order he'd overheard. He parked half a block away and watched as the crate disappeared through a service entrance. He waited 30 minutes, then slipped into the lobby, trying to look like he belonged. The air was cool, scented faintly with citrus and polished wood. Guests in tailored suits moved past him without a glance. He found the event hall by following the low hum of conversation. Through a half-open door, he saw it, white-clothed tables, champagne glasses catching the light, and in the center of each table, a small porcelain bowl filled with his berries, perfect, glossy, and framed by sprigs of mint. Guests picked them up delicately, as if they were rare jewels. Kevin's throat tightened. These weren't just snacks, they were a statement, a luxury detail at an event where image meant everything. He backed away before anyone could notice him, heart pounding. He had confirmation now, but not clarity. If his berries could sit in the middle of all this wealth, why was he being kept in the shadows? That night, the tracker pinged its last location, an address that wasn't the hotel. Somewhere else entirely. Somewhere Kevin knew he'd have to see for himself. The GPS pin blinked on his phone long after midnight. Kevin sat at the kitchen table, staring at it, the rest of the house dark and still. The address wasn't in the city, it was 20 miles out, in a part of the county where farmland gave way to gated estates and winding private roads. By dawn, he'd decided. He loaded a single empty crate into the truck, just in case anyone asked why he was there, and set off. The route took him past his own fields, the morning sun low over the ridge, then deeper into country roads he'd never driven. The address turned out to be a long gravel driveway, flanked by stone pillars. No gate, but the kind of landscaping that told you weren't welcome without an invitation. Kevin rolled in slowly, tires crunching. At the end of the drive sat a sprawling modern estate, glass walls, angular rooflines, and a manicured lawn that looked like it had been cut with scissors. Parked near the entrance was the black van from the hotel. He pulled over before the circular drive, pretending to check something in the truck bed. From his vantage point, he saw workers unloading crates, not just his berries, but boxes of exotic fruit he didn't even recognize. They carried them into a side entrance, where a woman in a navy blazer stood checking a list. Then, a figure appeared in the glass entryway, the man in the white shirt. No jacket today, sleeves rolled to the elbows, talking casually with the woman in the blazer. Kevin watched him gesture toward the crates, then to the house itself. Whatever this was, the restaurant was just one step in a chain that ended here. A sleek black car pulled up behind Kevin, startling him. The driver rolled down the window, middle-aged, sharp-eyed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Kevin's truck. "You're in the wrong driveway," the man said flatly. Not a question. Kevin forced a polite smile, mumbled something about a delivery mix-up, and backed out slowly. He didn't relax until the estate was a speck in his rearview mirror. That night, lying awake, he pieced it together: the estate, the hotel, the restaurant, the warehouse. His berries weren't just being sold, they were curated, channeled into a private network of clients who valued exclusivity above all else. The problem was, he still didn't know who ran it, or why they'd chosen him. The next note arrived 3 days later. No pickup time, no location. Just 2 words. We talk. The note sat on Kevin's kitchen counter all night, the black ink catching in the dim light each time he walked past. No details. No instructions. Just the promise, or threat, of a conversation. By morning, he was convinced it was a summons. He drove into town, keeping his phone close, expecting it to ring. It didn't. Instead, at precisely 10 a.m., a black SUV eased up behind him at a red light. The passenger window slid down. "Follow us," the driver said, eyes hidden behind dark lenses. Kevin's pulse jumped, but he obeyed. The SUV led him out of town, through a series of turns that seemed designed to disorient. Finally, they pulled into a quiet marina on the edge of a wide lake. Boats bobbed gently against their moorings. The man in the white shirt stood on the dock, hands in his pockets. No restaurant bustle, no warehouse workers, just him, the lake, and the faint slap of water against wood. "You've been curious," the man said without greeting. Kevin didn't deny it. "You're buying my berries for 3 times market price. I think I deserve to know why." A hint of a smile tugged at the man's mouth. Deserve? That's an interesting word. What you deserve is the money we agreed on. What you want is the truth. Kevin crossed his arms. And? The man turned, looking out over the lake. "There's a world you don't see. Private chefs, event planners, people who build experiences for clients who can buy anything, but who value the things they can't easily get. Your ridge berries? They're one of those things. They can't be replicated. That's why you're here." Kevin waited for more, but the man just let the silence stretch. "So I'm part of some exclusive supply chain?" Kevin asked finally. "Not part. Essential," the man said. "But exclusivity comes at a price. You don't ask questions about our clients. You don't change your methods without telling us. And you don't try to sell to anyone else in this network. Break that, and you're done." Kevin's mind churned. The offer, if it was an offer, was as much a leash as it was a lifeline. He tried one more question. "Why me?" The man's eyes flicked to him, sharp and unreadable. "Because you already had what we needed before you even knew it was valuable. That's rare. Don't ruin it." With that, he walked back toward the SUV, leaving Kevin on the dock with nothing but the sound of the water and 100 new questions. Back in his truck, Kevin stared at the steering wheel. He finally had some answers, but every one of them led somewhere darker. If they valued what he grew this much, what would they do to protect it? The next morning, Kevin stood at the ridge, dew still clinging to the leaves. He held one of the berries in his palm, turning it in the early light. Perfect. Fragile. The kind of thing that could vanish with one bad season. The man's words echoed, "Don't ruin it." For a week, Kevin worked like a machine, picking, sorting, packing exactly to their unspoken standards. No flats berries, no experiments. The notes kept arriving, the payments growing thicker. But so did the weight in his chest. Every crate that left his farm felt less like his and more like theirs. Then, on Friday evening, a different envelope arrived. Inside wasn't cash, it was a contract. His name, their terms. A guarantee of steady orders for as long as he complied. And in the margins, one sentence that chilled him. Failure to comply will result in termination of all business. He knew termination didn't just mean losing the contract. These people didn't like loose ends. Kevin sat at the kitchen table all night, the contract in front of him. Signing meant security, money enough to expand, to pay off debts, to secure the farm's future. But it also meant living inside their walls, never asking who the final customer was, never stepping outside the path they'd set for him. At dawn, he made his choice. The following week, the man in the white shirt waited at the warehouse. Kevin handed him the signed papers without a word. The man read them, nodded once, and slid an envelope across the table, his first advance under the new terms. But as Kevin left, he caught something in the man's expression. Not relief. Not approval. Something closer to possession, as if Kevin himself had just become another item in their inventory. Driving back toward the ridge, envelope on the passenger seat, Kevin felt the weight of it all. He had the money. He had the market. But somewhere in the middle of that chain, from his soil to their porcelain bowls, he'd lost ownership of more than just his berries. The ridge gleamed in the afternoon light, wind rustling the leaves. Kevin looked at it and wondered, not for the first time, whether the price of being essential was worth what he'd signed away. And deep down, he knew this story wasn't over.